Well, hey, I'm Michael Cooper, and we're in the study of the Ephesian movement, and we're concluding this the course with a discussion on three different types of ministries: the ministry of church planting, the ministry of apologetics, and the ministry of social justice. And today I have with me Jeff Christofferson, who is going to be teaching our course on church planting. Jeff, welcome. Uh,
Well, it's great to be with you, Michael.
Yeah, well, you know what? I am so happy that we're partnering together on this because I see that this is such an important subject for us really to address. So thanks, Jeff, for teaming up with us.
Yeah, it's my joy. I am excited about the vision of what this will be, and so I'm really enthusiastic to put my shoulder in this with you.
Great, great.
Yeah.
Well, hey, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a pastor and a serial church planter. So I planted numerous churches. The last church I planted multiplied prolifically. And then I became the director of church planting for our denomination in Canada. Later, I became the founder of the Send Network, which is basically church planting through Southern Baptists. So we through that network, plant about 700 churches a year.
Wow.
And then more after that, Ed Stetzer and I founded something called the Send Institute, which is an interdenominational church planting think tank. So we have 72 different denominations and networks involved in that. And I'm also executive director of Church Planting Canada. And I pastor a church. And so
Wow.
there's a
Wow.
lot going on.
So
Yeah.
you know a little bit about church planting, it sounds like.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm always learning. It's always changing. I'm always learning. Yeah,
Yeah. Now, your current church plant is called the Sanctuary. I've
that's
had
right.
the opportunity to sit in on some of your teaching and have been so appreciative of that. Tell us about that church plant.
Well, from my seat in watching a lot of church planting happen across North America, I began to notice some trends that we were able to, through some good systems, start more sustainable churches. So the churches we're starting were, after 5 years, 91% were still around, and
Wow.
but so we're starting healthier and starting stronger, but we're starting with measurably less evangelistic punch. And so just began to think, how do we start churches that actually engage lostness? The
Mm.
last church I planted, we didn't even let Christians in. We just started with evangelism and worked from there, and that thing just took off like crazy.
Wow.
And so we went with you and I have a good friend named Alan Hirsch, and Alan Hirsch, back in 2006, I met him for the first time, and he started talking to me about his concept of Ephesians 4, 11, 12, the apostle, prophet, evangelist, shepherd, teacher.
Yeah.
And so we started with a infinitely reproducible idea where we have a co-vocational team that each one serves in one of those, leading one of those functions and equipping the church to execute one of those functions:
Mm.
apostolic, prophetic, evangelistic, shepherding, and teaching. And so that's kind of what we're doing. And now that
Wow.
COVID has shut down, you know, much of what people would consider church, i.e., a worship service, we are just going like crazy, and it hasn't shut us down at all. And actually, we've hit a new gear, and
Oh,
it's been
wow.
fun to do.
Yeah. Well, that is so encouraging to hear. Uh,
Yeah, no, it's fun too.
yeah. Neat. And so you're one of those APEST leaders in
Yeah, so
your
I'm the A.
church. You're the A.
I'm the
All
A.
right.
Yeah, that's right. And I have my pest with me.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow, neat. Well, I am so excited to be able to offer this course on church planting because no doubt you're going to integrate some of your or a lot of your experience, past experience, and present experience in this course. So that'll be a fun course to be a part of. Now,
Yeah.
the course is going to be based on a book that you wrote a few years ago called
Mhm.
Kingdom First. Tell us a bit about how that fits into the framework of teaching about church planting.
Yeah. So I think where we get off, and where church plants turn into churches and then turn into um, kind of self-contained silos that have no kind of punch in terms of multiplication or community impact is that we start something that exists for itself primarily.
Mm.
And when the church starts with an eye, like when I talk to a church planner and ask a few questions and realize everything they're doing is bent on starting a worship service, and then you even press into that, and it's really a worship service that Christian people will appreciate and want to be a part of and financially support. You begin to realize that this church is not going to be a something that is going to have a an evangelistic impact, and b have a kingdom impact. Because I think when the church becomes the goal in itself, it becomes idolatrous, it becomes
Mm.
powerless, it becomes
Wow.
in many ways meaningless. But when the kingdom of God is the goal and the church is the vehicle to advance that goal, then it behaves in entirely different ways. It behaves like the Sermon on the Mount teaches Christ followers to behave.
Wow.
It gives itself away. It doesn't save itself. It loses itself. And so how we're going to look at starting a church is with a kingdom first philosophy weaved all the way through it. And so the model doesn't become the most important thing. The model becomes something that serves that. It becomes secondary or tertiary. It doesn't become a primary thing at all.
Wow. 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 That's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so as well. Jeff, why is church planting so important for the ministry of the church today?
Yeah, well, I mean, when we look at the way, if we just look at North America and you just start measuring how many people are sitting in churches um, on a Sunday on an average basis in every city in North America, there's every city except one. There's less people in church now than there were 10 years ago, and there's physically more people in those cities, and so the idea that we have sort of bought into, that church growth was going to get us to a place where everybody gets an opportunity to hear the gospel, it's silly on its face. Like McDonald's doesn't say, you know what, we're going to go to downtown big city and build a behemoth McDonald's, and we're going to measure how many people are going to be sitting there, and we're going to have all kinds of amenities for. They don't do that, because what they value is people buying burgers, actually people, and so what they measure is how many burgers are going out, that kind of stuff. and
Yeah.
and so to do that, they realize they got to bring the burgers close to the people. And then there's
Mm.
not one single McDonald's either. I mean, there's different kinds. They look different ways, they appeal to different audiences, even though their menus more or less exactly the same. And so that's really a picture, I think, of what church planting is the church growth model taught us that if we build a big one, that people are going to want to be a part of it. And it kind of worked for a couple decades, as long as there is some resident religious memory in the population. Maybe I should give some religious instruction to my kids, but that's more or less evaporated in most places. And so somehow we got to bring the burgers to the people.
Mm.
And church planting is the New Testament way that's done. And so yeah, it becomes really
Wow.
significant.
Yeah. Good. Wow. You mentioned a moment ago the word co-vocational, and
Mm.
I've heard you talk about this on different occasions. E- e- Explain that a bit.
Yeah, I had to invent the term, because
Okay.
before that we had the word bivocational, and uh, and it was kind of like the booby prize. Like, you didn't really want to be a bivocational pastor, bivocational planter, and so for a lot of people didn't, and so they would take a secondary job and hope that their church would grow enough so that they could pay their salary. Then they would drop this job, and because if you're a real pastor, you're not bivocational. If you're a real planter, the word bi, um, it infers division,
Mm.
bifurcate, bisect. There's two things that are competing. Co comes from the Latin com, which means together, co-pilot, co-author. This idea of working together, and so It really speaks to a heresy that we've believed for a long time,
Wow.
that there's a sacred and secular idea, that there's sacred callings and there's secular callings, and that, that's a great sort of picture from rationalism, but it's certainly not a biblical picture. Um, God calls a young lady to, ever since she was a little girl, to be a nurse. That's a sacred calling, and so can that calling that we have had be wed into a leadership position in a church planting movement? Yes.
Mm.
And then it becomes this infinitely reproducible idea where we're not spending kingdom dollars on maintenance. We're actually spending kingdom dollars on ministry. And so, for instance, the church that we just started, because of COVID, we're not renting a place and we're not paying a salary. And our tithes and our offerings and our giving continues to rise. And
Wow.
so we answer two questions over and over. We ask our people, how are they doing? And when there's needs in the household of faith, we meet those needs. And then we
Wow.
ask our people to ask their neighbors, how are your neighbors doing? And we use all of the resources that we have towards meeting the needs of the people, a cold cup of water in Jesus' name, or a grocery gift card. And so without
Yeah.
spending all of our energies and finances on maintenance, we're able to sort of press into the community and engage the gospel in ways that we wouldn't be able to any other way.
Wow. Wow. That's great. I know I've heard you say this, and I know that we agree on this, that if we're going to see an advancement of the gospel, we've got to see more people in co-vocational ministry. And
It's
so
the only,
I'm excited.
I mean, it's the biblical idea, and it's certainly the historical idea. Whenever
Mm.
whenever we see the Church of Jesus Christ on a movement, it's not a professional thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is going to be exciting. Jeff, I am so thrilled that you are teaching this course. I know it's going to be a blessing to many students, not only in North America, but around the world. And so, uh, thank you for
Yeah.
partnering with us. Looking forward to what God's going to do.
Well, thank you, Michael, and thanks. I'm grateful that God gave you the dream for something like this, because I think it fills a gap that no group or no idea is filling. I love the idea of academically rigorous, as well as very practical in terms of kingdom ministry, and so that's a great place to be.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Well, hey, if you're listening to this and you're in this course, I'm looking forward to you taking this course with Jeff. I know you're going to be blessed, and you're going to not only learn a ton academically, but I know Jeff is going to be speaking a lot from his experience and the experience of others. So be sure that you register for this course as as you continue on your journey of learning where it is that God is going to direct you in ministry.